one or whatever that we have described it to be, you will see that they're very heavy in some way, or you will sense it. How do you begin to sense this? Because being in your presence, and I talked to you as soon as I met you, you have a way of being therapeutic. How do you sense when someone is actually grieving something as a therapist? How do you sense that?
It's such a sensory experience. When I meet people, we all have energy. Mm-hmm. We can't really define what energy is. We may not even be able to see it. Oh, there are some people who believe that they can see it, and I don't, refute them, their belief system. But there is certainly an energy, and I've been working in this field for over 20 years. And when someone walks in and there's this energy, it's heavy. It's sometimes they're shrouded with weight. A lot of times, people who are dealing with issues around weight, I'm going to track it right back to grief, abuse, bullying, some kind of physical illness that has occurred to them over a lifespan where they're needing protection. So it is an energy. It is an energy that is just inexplicable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, this is a great time for a break. This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and along with Shannon O'Shea, and we're here talking to Edy Nathan. And you're listening to Your Family's Health, the voice of Nassau Community College at 90.3 WHPC. We will be back.
Okay, men, this is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're going to go out there and be an all-star caregiver. It's up to you. So what are you going to do? You're going to go grocery shopping, cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You got to dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Don't you forget about the pharmacy. I know you won't. Because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. This is your time to show the world, your family, and yourself that you're tougher than tough. Now go out there and be the best caregiver this world has ever seen. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
90.3 WHPC.
We now return to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Welcome back to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard, and I'm here with Shannon O'Shea, and we are talking to our special guest, Edy Nathan. Shannon, you had a question for Edy.
Yes. My question is...
Talking about grief.
Yes. What are the phases of grief?
That's a great question. I talk about the phases in the book. So often people will describe what someone goes through within the grief process as a stage. And I moved away from the idea of stage because stage feels very finite. And I really wanted to describe that. Like when we think of a stage, we think of there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that's it. Whereas the phases are more like the moon. Like we move in and out of these phases. And there's no one right way to go through them. Mm-hmm. So there are 11 phases in the book. I'm not going to go through all of the phases, but that first phase is what I call the emotional armor phase. And that's exactly what it is. We've often referred to it as numbness. We've often referred to it as denial or hysteria or protest, okay? And all of those go into that emotional armor. And it's called as such because when someone has that first shock of loss of a loved one, loss of a limb, losing a child, having been sexually abused, having been struggling with weight, they will really go to that emotional armor place. And I see the emotional armor phase, and it's going to be different for everyone. Someone might feel numb, and then they might feel hysteria, and then they might protest, and it's all part of the dance that they do in that first phase of emotional armor. What I see is that no matter where they go in all of those 11 phases, that first phase is a resting place. So you might visit the phase around anxiety and anger, and they might actually work in tandem, because often anxiety and anger do. But there might come a point in the anxiety and anger phases that they feel overwhelmed, and then they're going to go right back to that emotional armor phase. And again, it's that dance, it's that movement. So there's no one right way or wrong way for someone to go through the phases, and they're there because you might touch some of them, you might not touch any of them. Chances are you're gonna certainly hit that first phase, because I haven't met anybody who doesn't, and hopefully that last phase is grace, and that's the goal, is to get to grace. And again, grace is not about forgetting; it's learning how to grieve with grace. And for some people that might be religious, and that's fine. And for other people, you define what grace is for you. For me, it is a sense of calm. It is moving with your losses, with your sense of numbness or hysteria, and saying, okay, I'm calmer now, and I've reached my aesthetic balance, and I am moving along with it, not forgetting, but remembering peacefully.
Edy, how can an individual self-heal who does not seek the therapy of a therapist, someone like you? How do we begin to cope with grief, independent of anyone else? What can we do for ourselves?
The first line of defense is even acknowledging that something's going on. Because if you don't acknowledge it, then there's no conversation to be had. So first acknowledge it. Know, okay, something's not right here. And those signs, we were talking about the body and how we internalize things in the body. So it could be sleeplessness. It could be that your eating has changed. Your sleep has shifted in some way. It can be that you're feeling more anger. One of the things I also discuss is internalized anger versus externalized anger. Maybe you're not able to internalize it anymore. Maybe it's coming out. So those might be signs of grief. Maybe your anxiety has just really jumped up through the roof. Signs of oh, you know what? I'm grieving. Something is going on here. Too often, and I'm sure you've found this in your world, people think of going to a therapist as, oh my God, I must be crazy. Grief is crazy making. It doesn't mean you're crazy. And reaching out for help actually takes quite a certain amount of bravery to say, I can't do this on my own. I don't want to do this on my own. Now, if you believe that, I just can't make that step to get the help that I need to get, we've got an internet now. And you can overdose on the internet, but there are chat rooms for people who have dealt with any type of grief, from losing a child to losing a grandparent to being a caretaker and not being in that role anymore, to any of the other pieces that we've certainly mentioned here, RA, sexual abuse. So if you don't want to reach out, take the safest first step. Maybe talk to a good friend who you really trust. And trust may be difficult. So I get that. I totally get that trusting someone who might be hard. I, of course, want to say don't do it on your own, but, go onto the internet and see what kinds of platforms there are out there. In the back of my book, I actually have places of reference where, you can learn about breathing, you can learn about breath work. Breath work can help calm some of that external anger that's going on. There are exercises that you can employ, that you can learn about on the internet in terms of self-calming, self-soothing, that can certainly help you begin to have that first conversation with the self.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and today our special guest is Edy Nathan. You talked, Edy, about ways to communicate online to sort of, it acts sort of as a catharsis to get it on paper, because there's many people probably out there who are experiencing the same thing. Do you have a personal blog that you can invite people to that are grieving?
People can certainly find me on Facebook. I write a lot on Facebook, and I do have a personal blog. It's a list, and if anybody is interested in finding out more, they can go to my website, which is edynathan.com, and my name is spelled like very unusual. It's Edynathan. And if you are interested in the blog, I also have blog resources on the website, and you can read any of the previous blogs that I've written. And also, I'm always open to suggestions. If there's something that you think, I'd love for Edy to write about that, I'm more than happy to do so, because we need to be having this conversation, and I'd like to know what's going on with you.
So do you think that once a person has experienced grief and has handled it, now we say handling meaning that emotionally they seem to be okay, does it make them better equipped to handle something else, another loss? So if maybe I lost a mom and I've experienced loss of a father, would that equip me, if you will, for future losses? What are your thoughts?
It can. It absolutely can affect you for future losses. On the other hand, every relationship that we have with another person is different. When I lost my mom, it took me a very long time to integrate that loss. And I still get very emotional around that loss. And that's fine. That's part of my grief. And it comes in waves. And it's been 18 years. My father, I had a different relationship with my father, close, very close. But he was kind of ready to leave and maybe welcomed death in a different way. And so my relationship around those two deathing experiences as the witness to those experiences was very different. And yes, was I prepared because of the loss of my mom? But my father was a different person, and I think that we will grieve differently depending on who we lose and the relationship that we had with them. Because for some folks, they don't have a good relationship with someone they loved, they might not have liked. Mm-hmm. And when that person passes away, there's a thought of, I didn't have a chance to make it better. Mm. And so there is a regret. And when we move with those regrets, they eat at us. And we need to try to calm those regrets and be more present with what we can do about the way we feel today. And that would be a takeaway. Mm-hmm. Like, there are takeaways here. One takeaway is if you are feeling regret, it eats at you. If you are feeling that it's really hard to forgive, forgiveness may not be of the abuser, but a sense of forgiveness of the self, because so often we will blame the self.
So important.
Right? For something that went down, for something that happened to us that as we tell the story inside of our heads, maybe it was my fault. Maybe I caused it. And so we must forgive the self to move on and the moving on, another takeaway, moving on is not about forgetting. It's about how you are going to integrate it. Mm. So those are some really important takeaways. Breath work is important. Exercise is important. Exercising the body is a great reliever of grief, of stress, and of what we hold in our bodies. So, the body, as one of my favorite authors, Bessel van der Kolk, wrote in The Body Keeps the Score, you've got to pay attention to what goes on in your body and what the body says. And so exercise, such as yoga, is really, really important to relieve some of the stressors that we hold.
Mm. Wow, that was really great and very therapeutic for you to be here with us today.
Thank you.
So we want to thank you for being here, Edy, and we want to thank you, Shannon, for joining us in Nursing Studio.